All right. Today, I'm going to offer a solution that I say will offer massive benefit to your life. And I don't say that, tongue in cheek. I mean this. This will offer tremendous benefit to your life. And I only wish when I started my career or in my 20s, I had the insight and the solution that I'm going to offer you today. And I'll just give you a sneak peek of what I mean about what we're going to talk about today. And what we're going to talk about today is how you need absolute certainty or achieve that absolute certainty within you that there is unbelievable greatness within you ready to be unleashed. So we're going to talk more about that today. And my guess, because my guess is a lot of you are probably achievers that are listening to this today, is that you do have an inkling about that there's greatness within you. And what I'm going to challenge you on is that you have much, much more that's within you than you realize. And I'm pretty stoked to talk about that today. And the only price that you have to pay is that you spend maybe 15 minutes with me now and then implement the solutions we're going to offer in this talk today. So, so let me also say when when I say greatness, what I mean by that, I don't mean the greatness defined by the ego, which means that you're better than everybody else. What I mean when I say that greatness within you, what I mean is that you have an unbelievable amount of resources and talents within you that you were born with, that when you unleash them, that your magnificence shows through and people notice it and people are attracted and they go, wow, that's what I'm talking about. And the key to unlocking that greatness, which very few people do in my experience, starts with conquering the discomfort of seeing a bigger vision of yourself. And I find people get challenged by that. The concepts of doing it are very basic and simple, but implementing it and achieving it is more difficult. And I know one of the most common challenges I've seen in working with clients, and I think I stated before in some of these presentations, I've worked with over 1,800 clients, and most of them are at the top range of the top 5% in the world as far as their income and their success. Even that group, which is the top group, the most common fear I see in them is a fear of not being good enough. Again, no matter how successful they are. And as a result, it takes clients out of their comfort zone when you suggest to them that they need to see a bigger vision of themselves. That makes them uncomfortable. And and I think that fear, that I think the fear is if I bet on myself that I'm greater than I think I am, and I put in the work, and then and put a lot of work in, and then don't see the progress, the fear is a common fear that I see is then I'll be disappointed or crushed because now I had some doubts about I'm not good enough. Now this proves I'm not good enough, and then that cascades into oh my God, I'm in this downward spiral, and so they try to prevent that, and so they stay where they are and don't create a larger vision. So the other thing I would say is this fear is a common fear, and it's the fear of the mind. And that fear is easily triggered in people, even really successful people. It gets triggered through a lot of different ways, but some of the common ones is like, let's say you make a statement in public and it gets criticized by people that their opinions matter to you, or or that you fail at something and you publicly fail at something that was important to you and you put yourself on the line, or anytime you make a stupid mistake and that will sort of push that I'm not good enough button, or when you focus on what you haven't achieved at this stage of your life, or if you compare yourself to other people that are more successful to you, especially if they're around the same age. Those, if you're looking at your life that way and seeing it that way, it only tends to reinforce that you're not good enough. And so when those moments get triggered in you, I'm going to bet that in that moment, you're not now connected back to or associated about embracing my magnificence. You're more focused on I'm not good enough. And instead, what more routinely happens is we tend to get stuck in our head and leave it to our mind to determine what it means when you fail in that moment or you get publicly criticized, and so are you comparing yourself to others. So if you default to letting your mind decide what things mean, especially when you fail or get criticized, you're screwed. Your mind is wired to compile a list of reasons and evidence of why you're not good enough. Isn't that encouraging? So let's get to the more positive side of this talk. I'm just also pointing out what's the truth and what I've seen with people, including myself, is let's get to the more exciting part of this talk to break this cycle and to really, really tap into that greater part of you. First is you've got to decide you know that you're more than how you're showing up. And not only that, decide that you're much more than you are showing up. And that's what I love in working with clients is a lot of times my client has some inkling of their greatness and I push them beyond that level, and it's amazing what's possible. That's why I have so much confidence in this, that you're more than what you think you are. So once you make that decision and that's in place, then there's only two things you're going to need. You need to set up a specific practice to get out of your head and to break the toxic mind spell that it puts on you that you're not good enough. And then second, you have to develop a compelling future of who you know you can be. So those two things, well, it's really decide that you're way more than you know you are. One, set up a practice, get out of your head, and two, develop a compelling future for who you know you can be. And so the real secret to all this, the key to this, is you have to develop a knowing and certainty that you're more than you can ever imagine. There was a common question I heard many times growing up, and you probably heard the same question too, is it's banded a lot around in personal development. What could you achieve if you knew you couldn't fail? It's a great question, but that question never caused me to tap into my greatness. It got me to think about it, but it didn't get me to take any action. What will cause you to change is not that question. What will cause you to change is if you absolutely know that you have these unbelievable talents in you that is way beyond what you can even imagine, that if you develop them, it would put you on a whole new trajectory in your life. So if you knew that, and if you absolutely knew you had this greatness in you that's waiting to be tapped into, then the question is, well, how much risk would you take to achieve that in your life? I would bet most of you are going to take a lot more risk. When we have certainty about something, we tend to take action in spite of setbacks you might experience along the way. Because if you have that knowing, you know you're going to get there. So who cares? That's just part of the deal, taking some of those setbacks. So now the key is, and this is where the most important part is, and I wish I could emphasize this in a way so you guys get it, because this is so key. How do you develop that certainty that allows you to tap into more than who you think you are? The way you do it is, let's go through the practice of the way I've discovered to do it, is each morning I have a practice where I condition in that knowing, and it takes me about 10 minutes a day, not a lot of time. And what I do to condition that statement is I prime in one specific statement. In a moment, I'm going to talk about how you prime. I've talked about this in a previous talk, but I'll go through it again. But the statement I prime is God's greatness and magnificence is a foundational part of my being and essence. It's the genesis of how I came to be. And I will not let the outside world, my ego, failure to make hard choices, or an imperfect identity degrade that magnificence or my magnificence. That, so staying associated to that statement and starting my day every day, I don't care how I might fail during that day or during the week, or how I might get triggered by someone else that say I suck, or get a review on LinkedIn that is less than flattering. I don't care that, or what mistakes I made. Is I always return back to my true north. I know it, I breathe it, I feel it. In essence, it creates a very compelling future for me to who I knew I can be. And as a result, it puts me on a constant growth path, and a growth path to constantly challenge myself and dig out more and more and more. My belief is that and if you go at this full scale, you will never ever tap into all what you can be. But it's exciting. It's exciting. But it will allow you to take more risk and live a better life and more fulfilling life. So the statement that I just went through is my guess, not my guess. I know you probably have to put it in language that inspires you. Is I just want to talk a little bit about the statement that when you come up with it, I'll give you a little bit of my thinking. Is in essence, my strategy in creating the statement is I wanted something that grounded me back into my magnificent every day. And it does, it grounds me in that. I get goosebumps when I know there's so much there within me. And second piece of that statement is I wanted to be aware of the core things that tend to degrade my magnificence or cause me to disassociate from that magnificence. Because let's face it, we live in a busy lifestyle. There's so much things bombarding us and things happening. We don't keep that awareness about us, about that magnificence, and we lose it, especially when we have bad things happen. Last thing I'm going to say, and then I'll shut up, is I mentioned that I prime that statement, and it just raises your energy level. There's more. I'm going to give a brief demonstration of how to prime. If you want more detail around it, if you go on YouTube, Tony Robbins, if you type in Tony Robbins priming, he goes through a little training ritual on how to do it the right way. But it just creates in your nervous system an expectation of that's who you're going to be that day. And you keep stacking one day after another, after another, after another, after another. Pretty soon, that becomes who you are because all your focus is going into that. So basically, the prime, it's something very simple. It seems sort of goofy. All I know is it just works. And all I would ask, even if you think it might be goofy, is just to do it for a month and see if you notice a difference where you are more bulletproof when you fail at something and you don't worry about it or people criticize you or whatever. You just know who you are. And so all you have to do is let me go through, and typically this exercise, I do it and I'll be stating the statement. But first I just want to show you, it's a breathing exercise. And what you do is you breathe through your nose pretty vigorously and you're going, and I will do that for 8 to 10 minutes. And as I'm doing that breathing process, I'm going through that statement, God's greatness and magnificence, a foundation part of my being and my essence, is Genesis, how I came to be. And I go through, and I will not let the outside world, my ego, failure to make hard choices, an imperfect identity degrade my magnificence. and I connect to that. I keep connecting. There is nothing that will deter me from knowing that that greatness is in there. And so it allows me to make mistakes and not be devastated and go back to, I'm not good enough. It's such an invaluable process. I highly recommend that you do it. And if you do, let me know. I'd love to hear your comments. And I probably went way over longer than I usually do. Hey, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next live stream. Thank you.